party and Loch Daibre, Chapter Alan Kelly, August Dead no made Agat Kunrach.
Count Corley, Taoiseach, I'd like to commence my contribution today by paying respects to all the people who've lost their lives and their families. May they rest in peace. I also want to thank again all the workers who are making such sacrifices for us all. And coming up to May Day, I would hope that you would acknowledge that in some rather significant way this year, above all years. Taoiseach, I have 4 areas I want to speak about today. The first one is relating to transparency of government actions. The second one relates to testing and government contributions around that. Third one is how we all use language. And fourth one is in relation to your roadmap. Last week, I asked a number of questions regarding transparency of decision-making. I again want to restate my support for NEFIT, Taoiseach. And last night you wrote to me answering some of my questions, except you didn't answer them. So I will be writing to you again. I still don't know why minutes aren't recorded at the beginning of every meeting and signed off on. I still don't know how people are appointed to NEFIT. And you still haven't published the letters from the HSE, from the chairperson and from the chief executive to the Minister and the Department of Health regarding their concerns on governance. Will you please publish these letters? I'm asking on behalf of the people of Ireland in a very transparent way. What's there to hide behind? Since last week's Taoiseach, I've been inundated with people who have been asking me about issues regarding the transparency of decision-making. So people are concerned, now more than ever, because transparency isn't a luxury in our democracy. And I think also there needs to be a rebalancing in relation to democratic accountability. It's fantastic that we have so many members of NEFIT appearing on the media, but I also think the odd time they need to appear before some formation of these houses. We've received unpublished legal advice regarding how we can meet from the Business Committee, but I also believe that what the Labour Party said at the very beginning of this regarding setting up a committee on COVID now needs to happen. And the laws allow for it, Count Corley. And this needs to happen imminently. It happens in New Zealand. It even happens in the UK, as much as we deride them. In a letter to the President of the European Commission, the European Ombudsman, Emily O'Reilly, said that maintaining high standards of good administration may seem particularly challenging in these times. However, it is exactly during such times that high standards across all areas of public life are needed, more than ever. She is not wrong. And we need to be able to speak clearly and honestly with citizens in order to maintain the democratic processes, and we need to show everything transparently. Secondly, Taoiseach, I believe the Minister for Health and NEFIT have legally overstepped their mark on decision-making when it comes to testing, which did lead to those letters being written. Under Section 70 of the Health Act 1970, it is the function of the HSE to, quote, make arrangements for carrying out tests on persons without charge for the purposes of ascertaining the presence of a particular disease, defect or condition that may be prescribed. Under the 2014 Act, the Minister must lay before the Houses any general written directions regarding its statutory functions. This, in this case, did not happen. So the Minister prescribes the disease and the HSE is responsible for making the arrangements to test for the same disease. But the Minister and some members of NEFIT have been demanding a quantum of tests beyond the HSE's capacity without first consulting them. So I've gone back and logged where this requirement to meet 15,000 tests a day appeared first, and it seems to be on the 18th, 19th of March, following a visit to the NVRL by yourself and Minister Harris. You've referenced this visit yourself a number of times. Minister Harris said the following day that 15,000 would be reached in the next, quote, in the next few days. Then following the CMO's appearance on the Late Late Show on April the 17th, this suddenly changed to 100,000 tests a week. It was mooted that this needed to be achieved now within 10 days. And the following day, NEFIT said it urgently needed to happen, and we understood that lifting of the restrictions on May the 5th was indeed conditional on this happening. But now that seems to have changed. Now it is not conditional. But during all of this, no one bizarrely asked the HSE, could they deliver it? Because the answer was clearly no. That's why those letters were written. For instance, they didn't have control over the labs. They didn't have control over all the levers here. That's why they couldn't deliver it. So, Taoiseach, government actions throughout all of this have to have a basis in law. And the actions here, as regards the instructions to the HSE, didn't. Taoiseach, I also want to raise the use of language, because it's critically important in these days. As the poet Ivana Boland, who sadly passed away this week, often wrote in her poems, "The language you use is the making of us." She said, "Language has the power to redeem the damages that have been made." As we remember her and her life, that quote is very apt for how we communicate in these days, Taoiseach. The kite flying and tone from government at times over the last 2 weeks has simply been unacceptable. The government, you Taoiseach in particular, the Minister for Health, and indeed some members of NEFIT have been creating a narrative that the citizens of Ireland who are doing their best to stick to the rules that are in place are in some way to blame for the restrictions not being lifted, when the real reason is nothing of the sort. Taoiseach, you cannot dangle citizens' freedom in front of them. You cannot say, if you adhere to the rules, then we'll give you your freedom. The relationship the Irish people have with the state during this pandemic is not a transactional one. It is one that needs to be built on trust and respect. The CEO of the HSE, Paul Reid, tweeted on Monday about this in a very direct and timely way. Quote, "One of the best lessons I learnt in life is the difference between commitment and compliance. Commitment has to win hearts and minds. This is what we need to do now, and not just talk about compliance." I personally believe you need to listen to Paul Reid a lot more, Taoiseach. The Irish people, Taoiseach, have been very patient since March the 13th, when schools and creches closed. We all know that, and we thank them. What they need now is honesty and clear communication. People need hope, not to feel shamed. The whole pandemic is having an extraordinary impact, as we all know, on the well-being of our nation. Those over 70s feel that more than most. I think of my own parents. So you need to, this weekend, give them hope more than anyone else. These are the people who are in the later years of their life, who have been the most disciplined in this crisis and have contributed more than anyone else to creating this great country. But many now feel patronised by how they are being treated. And I, for one, am urging you to give them some hope this weekend, however small. I remember on Friday, when you update people on restrictions and set out your roadmap, Taoiseach, that these need to be your decisions, your government's roadmap, not NEFIT's or the CMO's. And I don't think we can continue with the CMO making pronouncements all the time before they are considered by you or the government. And I think you agree with me on that. You need to be holistic and assess where we are at and the impact of further restrictions. What will the impact be on the rest of our health services? You've spoken about secondary morbidity. I know of a consultant in Limerick who diagnoses cancer 8 times a week, but hasn't done so for the last 4 weeks. So these people are walking around, they don't know that they have cancer. We have a lack of screening, bowel screening, cervical screening, breast check. We also know we've elevated mental health risks. On top of that, there is the socio-economic impacts of maintaining restrictions. So all of this needs to be considered, and that's what a government's role is. We need to start a conversation on what Irish society looks like living with Covid-19 that brings citizens with us, not making them feel like they're in the bold corner. Citizens need to see a coherent, staged exit strategy from these restrictions. Businesses need to plan for the new world. Their instructions on what they need to do need to happen this weekend. Not when they need to do it, but what they need to do to prepare. Taoiseach, nobody expects you to absolutely get everything right over the next few weeks. I certainly don't. But we do expect to see a vision from you, and we do expect to see action from you. Actions that you will stand over. They're your actions, your government's actions. And we cannot allow perfection to get in the way of progress. because we will not, in these unusual times, be in any way able to perform such an act. But remember this, collectively we are all here to serve the citizens of Ireland. This weekend, Taoiseach, the citizens of Ireland need to see political direction. They need to see a plan, and they deserve to be given hope. I wish you well.
Thank you, Deputy Kelly. Now, the Social Democrats, Deputy Shortall, your 5-minute statement and 5 minutes for questions.
Yeah, roughly.